This episode of the podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. Visit patreon.com/lightscameranonsense to help support your favorite new movie podcast. Now, let's roll that reel.
Let's just go ahead and get into that. Hello everyone and welcome to Lights Camera Nonsense, where we give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed again, because it is part 2 of our 2021 in review, Zach.
Part 2.
We give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed. I am Nick. I'm just going to steal that. Part 2 Simmons.
And I'm Zach, back again, Smith.
With a vengeance. And again, on Sunday, January 9th, 2022, let's roll into the previews. If you're watching us on social media, please like, follow, rate us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It'll really expand our audience and show other people the podcast you love watching with all the movie news and reviews that you care about. We are
That was what you said, but backwards. That was amazing. Congratulations. I didn't know you could do that.
I thought I was past this. I thought I got all of that out of my system with part 1. But no. What I was going to say is we also have a store.lightscameranonsense.com, where you can buy your favorite merch for your favorite movie podcast and help represent us out in the real world. Hopefully you're also wearing a mask. I need to actually design a Lights Camera Nonsense mask. You know, I feel like because they're becoming all the more important lately with the second wave, the third wave, the fifth wave, starring Chloe Grace Moretz of coronavirus. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
Did you read the news? I love that we're going to start this off with a dark note, but I can't help it. I read an article saying that scientists are preparing for 6 more years of this virus, in the UK at least.
No, I didn't see that, but it doesn't surprise me, seeing as how no one really wants to do anything about it.
Yep. We're just gonna start off this podcast with just a real big fucking downer. I don't think that's actually going. Well, who knows? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? That should be your motto for everything.
That should be, yeah. Or your motto should be, let's fucking do something.
Let's do something. And
stop preparing and do something. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's dive into let's just dive into what we were going to talk about with part 2. Yeah.
Part 2, what television shows do you want to talk about that you consumed during the pandemic?
Not only did I consume during the pandemic, I consumed a lot of these in just the last couple of months alone, and there is so much to talk about. Let's start off with one that I know we both watched. We both watched Ted Lasso season 2. Yep. Really, there's not much more to say that we haven't already gushed about with this series from our 2020 in review when it came to our top shows and movies from that year, because Ted Lasso came out of nowhere as this underdog like show that no one would normally ever really care about football coach who takes over a soccer team in the UK. But fucking hell, if it hasn't been just like, it's been a whirlwind tour de force, like unstoppable machine of a show. Like it's, I can literally, like, by degrees of people tell you how many people I've influenced into watching this show. It's like me introducing it to, I don't think I introduced it to you, did I? You were already aware.
No, I had it on my list. You did watch it before me, but I had it on my list because for like the 20th fucking time over the last 2 episodes talking about Twitter, we follow a lot of the same people. So when certain people started talking about Ted Lasso, I think that's where we both saw it. And then
I got
eventually I got around to it. But yes, I was aware of it beforehand.
It would take more than all 10 of my fingers to tell you how many people I've influenced into watching the show. I'm like, just watch one episode. Just watch the pilot episode, and if you're not hooked, you don't have to keep watching. And they always end up watching. They almost always binge the first season. It's just so easy to binge.
It is, yeah.
Such a fantastic show. It's a bright light in a very dark time of looking at the news, looking at, just headlines of all the things that are happening in the real world, and just watching this just wholesome, like fluffy marshmallow type of feel of a show. I know I keep saying that as a comparison for this show, but that's what it feels like. It feels like a comfortable blanket you're pulling over
It feels like a warm hug,
Yeah,
as
like a
Mr.
warm
Laster would say.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think season 2 very much is still in the same vein of season 1 in that regard. There's a lot of feel good stuff in there. I think it's just a teensy bit weaker than the first season, but a lot of that might also have to do with the fact that I had no expectations going into season 1.
For sure.
I do think there are actual technical issues with season 2, but I won't go too far into that because we've kind of already talked about it.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, it was still definitely one of the most enjoyable watches I had all year, for sure. Yeah, I can't wait to get more. I can never imagine having enough of the show. So even the weaker seasons are still great.
Still great.
They're still great.
Like I read headlines just near Christmas time when we were still in the dark. A lot of people were going back and watching the Christmas episode of Ted Lasso just to like get that.
It's a very feel good episode. Like the show normally is feel good, but the Christmas one specifically is very good.
I will agree that because it's a second season and we've gotten to know the characters, we don't really have we have the expectations already that it's a hard bar to overcome.
Yeah.
That's not the right phrase. But how would you feel if I told you that they only have planned for 3 seasons of the Ted Lasso?
I'd say great.
Money on the table.
I actually love hearing that. Do I like that I won't get more? I mean, not necessarily. Like, I'm not happy that there will be. No, it's kind of weird. In one way, I'm not happy that I'll get less. Right. On the other hand, a TV creator coming in and saying up front, "This is the season length that we're aiming for," spectacular. Because so many shows go on for way too long, and they drag out way beyond their jumping the shark days. Like, yes, it's money on the table. Conceivably, this could go for seasons and seasons and seasons. Mm-hmm. To me, though, hearing that the creators are going 3 and then we're out, fuck yeah, I'm so down for that. I want more of that.
Yeah, I think if they stop with 3, I'd be okay, just like you. I think as long as they have a story left to tell, and I think that the creators behind this show, Brett Goldstein, Jason Sudeikis, obviously, and I can't remember the third creator who's just kind of behind the scenes. As long as they have a story left to tell, if they're smart enough to know how long they want to drag it out. Every single time we hear about a creator of a series saying that they have a specific number of seasons that they have an overarching story that they want to tell, it's almost always a good sign. Like they have a plan for the entire series.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, that tells me that you've actually thought about your steps, how to get there. Yeah. You haven't just thought about one season and then like how to what will come with the next season. We're ending it on a cliffhanger. You're telling me that you have story beats planned out, and I definitely appreciate that. Hearing that actually makes season 2. That makes it make more sense to me because I felt a lot of season 2. I talked about before was teeing up these problems and then just kind of automatically solving them, which it seemed kind of like a condensed version of season 1 where the message was like, hey, we need to communicate with each other to solve things, and if we just talk to one another, a lot of our problems can get solved. Season 2 kind of takes that, but like in almost to a negative sense. Other than with Dr. Sharon, the therapist, I felt like a lot of the Keeley and
Roy. Keeley and Roy.
yeah, Keely and Roy stuff. A lot of that just seemed like it was gearing up for something big, and then they would talk about something, and then it kind of like lay low.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were a couple other things like the Sam and the
Rebecca.
uh, Rebecca. Thank you. I was just thinking Hannah Waddington.
Yeah. Well,
um,
it's amazing how close the actors are to the characters that they're playing. Like
yes,
that's
yeah.
why it feels so genuine and why they're able to portray these characters so well is because as far as we can tell as an audience member, as somebody who's never met these actors, that seems like they're not having to put too much acting ability into portraying their characters, and that makes it feel, like I said, more genuine.
Yeah. So hearing that, like all these problems seem to kind of get resolved fairly quickly, which was one of the problems I had with season two. The ending of season two hints at the fact that some of those problems might not necessarily be solved all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So you telling me that the creators have previously stated that 3 is what they're aiming for, that actually makes the way I feel about season 2, that makes a whole lot more sense to me.
Okay.
Because now it's effectively a middle movie at that point.
Which is always tough.
Yeah, and it's a good middle movie.
Yeah.
But with that come the downfalls of a middle movie, and that a lot of stuff that is not resolved.
Unfortunately, but it's still a good season, and we highly recommend you check it out. It's on the Apple TV streaming platform.
Apple TV Plus.
Yes. I believe that was me throwing that in. What's your show?
Yeah, so I mean, we couldn't have a 2021 year in review for television without talking about fucking Squid Games, right?
Holy fuck! I didn't write that down. You're absolutely right.
I mean, that's wild to me. Squid Games, man, what a crazy.
It's in the thumbnail. I didn't forget it. I just forgot to write it down.
It's a good show. Yeah, like a basic cultural flashpoint, I guess, for a lot of people. Just it's a standard quote unquote battle royale sort of
tournament arc
thing. Yeah, with classes and societal sort of discussions going on.
It was a very relevant story for a lot of people who are struggling with money, struggling with being poor, feeling like they're like they would be willing to do anything, and they're kind of projected themselves onto the main character,
feeling like they're being used by a certain body, and then told that, well, you made the decision, so anything that happens to you is your fault, when in reality you weren't really given a choice. I mean, I'm sure you can, and I wouldn't be surprised if people have written huge essays about Squid Games.
Not to mention, there's already been rumbles behind the scenes of an American version of this show, which I feel like, trust me, I get it. We're already having to deal with the ramifications of, I forgot the title already, but the Train to Busan remake that's coming out.
The Parasite one. I haven't heard anything about that Parasite one.
I haven't either yet, but yeah, it's going to be a American TV series. But Bong Joon-ho is going to be behind that, so I don't know. It's tough because it all depends on the involvement and the how much people are willing to invest in the story of telling a popular story again from a different point of view. Most often it's just a cash grab, but we'll see. I don't know. Squid Game, fantastic show. I think it's hilariously ironic that we're seeing kids dress up as the fucking pink jumpsuited people for Halloween and stuff. Just the weird. That's a 2021 pivotal moment. It was the Tiger King of 2021.
Absolutely,
and we had a Tiger King series.
Because I actually finished Squid Game.
Oh yeah, well, see, there you go. I almost didn't. It was the show that a lot of people, the bandwagon had already gone, and I had watched the first episode, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a pretty good show. And it kept getting larger and larger and larger. I'm like, how is this becoming so huge? And it was the most watched Netflix series, according to Netflix, ever.
Yep.
Surpassing Bridgerton, I believe, was the previous
Yes, I believe
TV
that's correct.
series to get the most views within a week. Fantastic show. I'm excited for season 2, although it literally has not been written or
Yeah,
planned
yeah,
out. We're not getting it for like at least 2-3 years. So
yeah. It hasn't even been confirmed by the writer of the first one that he's gonna do
It's-
more. But I think it ends in a way where if we get more, then cool. If not, then I
yeah,
think it's a very open ended sort of ending where you're like, okay, well, what happens next, sort of thing.
it's a very old boy type ending.
Mm,
If you've seen
I
that movie,
I
or
have not. So literally every time.
I know it's an ambiguous ending that is both satisfying and leaving you questions.
Yes.
You can think of another movie. It's a fill in the blank there.
Performances are fantastic. I mean,
You can see a lot of the
I think.
same actors in The Silent Sea, which just came out. It's a
Oh
fantastic
yeah,
sci-fi film. Yeah,
I'll have to seek that out. Yeah, I mean, like I think that's a big reason as well why it was received so uh, uh, well. That everyone in it is fantastic. Um, all stars all around.
yeah.
Um, and just a lot of feeling behind each scene, as you would hope and expect from something about a murder game.
Yeah. They're we're gonna jump off of that because I feel like we've basically established how we feel about Squid Game. It's a fantastic show. You should check it out if you haven't already. I feel like every Netflix member probably watched it. I watched another South Korean show that came out in 2021, and I feel like with Squid Game and with the show I watched, Hometown Cha Cha Cha, just such a dumb name. Um, which is a romantic comedy drama series,
Mm.
completely different genre. But there is so much uh, foreign language TV shows and movies on Netflix that
Yep.
completely are skipped over by the general Netflix
Oh
audience.
yeah.
That hopefully people are now willing to broaden their horizons after having watched Squid Game, um, or having been dragged to the movie theaters to watch the Demon Slayer movie. Which was like the highest grossing
I know.
animated film of all time in America. But hopefully people are willing to broaden their horizons. And I know we're going to keep repeating that over every part of every in review that we say. But there was a fantastic pivot and change into what people are interested in watching. And we saw that with Parasite winning Best Picture at the very beginning of this year. And then Squid Game, of course, being huge. BTS, of course, being one of the biggest bands in the world of
Yeah.
all time.
Cultural phenomenon.
We're seeing a change, and I'm personally excited for it. Hopefully, that doesn't mean just American white remakes of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely. We've seen that happen before. It wouldn't be too shocking. And yeah, I mean, much like the animation we discussed in the first part of this, there is not a small amount. There is not a loss or a well, what's the word I'm looking for? The quantity of available K dramas or just Korean shows,
Right.
non-English speaking shows in general that are out there for you to consume
Mm-hmm.
is so abundant. So if that is something that interests you, like you said, Nick, Netflix alone has a shit ton of those.
So many.
There are so many on Netflix alone that you can access in the US. Like, you don't have to use a VPN or anything. They're just there.
They're just there. Some of their biggest shows of last year were non-English speaking shows.
Yeah,
Lupin,
absolutely.
La Casa del Papel or Money Heist, whichever it's called.
That was HBO, I think. But yeah.
No, that's on Netflix.
Oh no, I'm thinking of shit. What is it?
That's a weird.
There was one on HBO. That it wasn't Money Heist, though. You're right.
And Squid Game being, of course, the obvious example we're using here. But
12 coins, I think, is what it's called.
Oh.
12 coins, something like that.
12 coins?
Yeah.
Anyway. hopefully, yeah, like you said, like I said, we're seeing a change in interest, and there's a huge abundance of movies and TV shows that are out there. I'm constantly adding them to my queue.
And that's just stuff that came out with like in the last year or 2 years.
Yeah.
That's not even taking into account older stuff that you could definitely find.
Um.
Uh, yeah, I mean, ideally, it sort of has a Parasite effect, the film Parasite effect, where it shows people into something that they weren't really familiar with because it was outside of what they normally look for, or they weren't
It's
readily advertised to them.
great
Hopefully,
stories. Sorry, go.
that leads. No, you're good. I was just gonna finish by saying, hopefully, that leads them to finding more of these great stories, because great stories is not, just English. There's so many different options out there, and if you are just starting down this road, you will be surprised at how many things have just been straight up lifted from other languages and adapted for an English speaking audience.
Yeah. I was basically going to say the same thing when I was trying to cut you off. I was a lot of people I mean it's not about representation, it's about trying to enjoy and be entertained by a great story, and that's not limited to the English language. We saw that with Parasite's win. We saw that with the nomination for Minari, which had a large portion of it in another language.
Yeah, that one still kind of annoys me though.
I know. It definitely got snubbed for sure.
Well, not just that. They nominated it for a foreign language film, and it's an American film.
Right.
The actors are American. The director's American. It's an American fucking film.
I know. It's Martian was nominated for best comedy. So
yeah.
So Hometown Cha Cha Cha, which I got distracted from. It just follows a nurse from Seoul, South Korea, who moves out into the country after being kind of trash talked in the dentist community. And so she opens up a clinic in this seaside town and bumps into this kind of jack of all trades guy and develops a kind of love-hate relationship, which turns into a more romantic relationship over the course of the series. It's another light, fluffy, kind of warm hug kind of show. There's some dramatic moments to it, but it's a very simple show. It follows the stories of everyone who lives in that small coastal town. There's a lot of fun characters to follow. It's just simple. It's the only catch is that every episode is like an hour and 20 minutes. Like with no
How many
commercials.
episodes?
It's 13, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So it's quite a bit.
It's quite pretty long.
Yeah, it's quite long, but yeah, you're watching a movie every time you watch an episode. Yeah. But I think that because you have that much time with all of the characters in the show, you get you fall in love and you feel like you're a resident of that coastal town by the end of the series. And I personally loved it. I thought it was heartwarming. I loved every character by the end of it, except for one specifically. But if you're like we're saying, trying to check out foreign language shows because you were interested after watching Squid Game or after watching any of the other shows that they recommend on the homepage, then I definitely recommend Hometown Cha Cha Cha. It's just the one season because it's just the one story between the two main characters, but the only other thing is that it's a time commitment. What's another show that you watched that you enjoyed in 2021?
So we'll stay on the Netflix train. One of my favorites from this past year was Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass.
Fuck. You took that from me. That was my next one.
It's mine now.
Well, I still watch way more than I have backups. Come on.
Yeah, Midnight Mass. So Mike Flanagan, the guy behind
Haunting of Bly Manor, Haunting
of Hill House. Bly Manor, Hill House. Yeah, he's kind of like he's in Doctor Sleep, right? He did that.
Yes. He's kind of been the Stephen King director for a while after Frank Darabont.
Right. So Midnight Mass is kind of a continuation in that sort of style where it's very Stephen King-esque. It's if I don't want to say if you're familiar with this, it's very that because that spoils it. There is something that it is quite similar to.
Casper.
Yes, Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Oh, I was thinking Hill House, or Bly Manor.
No.
I was like, oh no, Midnight Mass is something else entirely.
Yes, yeah. So I don't want to go too far into that.
I'm trying to think
But-
now what you're trying to allude to.
I could say one word, but that would literally spoil
Okay,
it.
let me know after we record.
Yeah, so it's just kind of continuing that flow. Great script writing, fantastic characters. It's a pretty ensemble cast. There's one or two characters that it focuses on specifically, but this I think more than Hill House and Bly Manor are more of ensemble. Maybe less so. Hill House was pretty ensemble, but Bly was mostly focused on the main heroine of that. But with Midnight Mass, you kind of get all these different characters that it's focusing on. Each one has their different story that's going on behind the scenes. And yeah, it's just about this little island town that starts to have some interesting, sometimes spooky things happen. And that's all I can really say about the plot because
Honestly,
anything.
So it starts off as a pretty slow burn, much like Hill House and Bly Manor.
It is very slow burn. I would say it's the most slow burn of the. Maybe Bly Manor is a little bit more.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bly Manor never really has that, and then all the shit goes down.
I don't know. I think Bly Manor and Midnight Mass. Yeah, Bly Manor is probably a little bit slower. Midnight Mass though has. So you know when people talk about George Lucas and the prequels, and they're like,
interesting.
He was making this, and he just had a lot of people around him saying, "Yes, do that." I don't feel that totally with Midnight Mass, but I do feel it in the monologues.
That was the biggest complaint that people had with this. With Midnight Mass.
The monologues in Midnight Mass, they're very pretty. They're very flowery and evocative. Sometimes, though, they have a tendency to be a little cyclical, and you're like, okay, street before. There it is again. Yeah. There it is again.
There's one specific one, yeah.
There's a couple that kind of feel like you're just saying the same thing over and over, but in different ways. That being said, I think that's really its biggest and frankly only shortfall. And that's where the slow burn for me comes the most. Because everything else, when it's two people talking and they're not monologuing their asses off,
yes,
then it's usually to progress either character motivations, character growth, or the plot itself. So there never really is, as long as it's focusing on that, it's moving at quite a good pace for me. That's just when you do get into the monologues, they're quite breathy.
They're long.
And monologues have always kind of been a staple in Flanagan's TV work at the least. I haven't seen Dr. Sleep, so I'm not sure about that, but I don't recall feeling that way about Oculus.
Well, Dr. Sleep was already a long movie.
Yeah. So the monologues do happen in like Bly and Haunting a Hill House. But those felt like they were kind of like there was an editor that was doing a little bit more work than they were doing on Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
But all that said, it is fantastic. As long as you go in prepared for some like, okay, on it's only really like one or two scenes specifically felt really bad.
Yeah.
But everything else is great. And that's unfortunately that's all I could really say to save people from getting spoiled. Just I would heavily recommend it because it was one of my favorite watches for sure.
Oh, absolutely. The moment you realize when shit is going down, when it
Mhm.
changes to a different kind of show, uh it goes by like this. Save for one monologue in the final episode, it was just going by like this.
Yep.
And I was so thoroughly invested. I'm like, I just wish it's insane to me that this wasn't inspired by like Stephen King or Peter Straub or fucking Bill Simmons or
I
whoever.
mean, I'll tell you after once we're done. What I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, and you'll be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that is almost pretty much the same thing as that."
Okay. Well, I'm interested. I'm interested to find out what that is.
But beautifully shot too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could make art pieces just hang it shots from this show up on your wall, and maybe not. There's a scene with dead cats at the beginning. Maybe not that one. Don't hang that one.
Yeah, I was specifically warned about that scene too, and it
Yeah.
was right at the beginning. I'm like, oh no, Marley, my cat, the producer of the show. Yeah, I had to hide him away because you don't want your cat to
Yeah, they don't need to see that.
watch. You don't need to come on.
What's another one for you?
Yeah, another show I wanted to talk about. Oh, I don't want to lump them together. I might lump them separately. Dave season 2, fantastic. More Dave. Watch this show. If you're a fan of, and I feel like I did this comparison last time. If you're a fan of Atlanta, and this was produced and some episodes directed by Hiro Murai, who also directed a lot of Atlanta, you're getting that same type of feel where it's definitely this. I'm gonna go way too much into Dave, but it's a hard sell because Little Dicky, the rapper, it follows him. It's following his story after he's kind of gained some popularity at the end of season 1. He's directing music videos for his new concept album after a label picks him up, and it's going through all the different like Curb Your Enthusiasm type of scenarios where he's just like a simple solution to this problem he's making more complicated,
Mm.
or he's overthinking things, and it's going through all the traps and mishaps that a character can go through when it comes to finding fame and trying to become famous. He's trying to become the world's best rapper, basically, and there's a lot of fucking it's a lot of cringe. It's a lot of cringe humor,
Yeah.
which I know will not be for everyone, but it's fantastic. It's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of humor and a lot of dark parts to it as well. So I highly recommend people check that out. That's on Hulu. And quickly, I want to go over a couple of shows that I talked about before that we didn't go too much into. The Nevers, I think people still need to check out. That's on HBO Max. That's about women in Victorian times getting superpowers, and females getting superpowers, and it's an interesting like alternate history kind of thing, and it's kind of hard to explain. You're just gonna have to check it out. That as well as I didn't write it down. I was trying to remember. Oh my gosh, Raised by Wolves. I think people should still check out. It got greenlit. Like season 2 is coming out very soon. I think people should definitely check it out. It's a Ridley Scott production, which he's still on my poop list. Just because I feel like he's kind of an old curmudgeon, kind of when it comes to Hollywood in general.
It's a very polite way to put it. Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice because we've already shit talked him a little, and I know we're gonna shit talk him a little bit more.
And he's listening right now.
He is. He's the number one contributor to the production of this podcast. Imagine if Ridley Scott actually was listening to this podcast.
that would be pretty insane.
Yeah.
Also, would kind of explain all the hate mail I get from him.
Well, Ridley, great first name,
Mr. Scott.
Mr. Scott. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking about like Michael Scott from The Office. Mr. Scott, Scott's Tots. Listen. where's Alien 5? So the next show I wanted to talk about is Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Martin Short, or Steve Martin Short, as I like to call him, and Selena Gomez. Out of the blue TV series that I just like happened to turn on one day because I was hearing good things, and the ad was fucking everywhere on my browser.
It's still everywhere. Oh my gosh.
But the good thing is that it's actually a good show that I think people should check out. It's a very it's dark comedy has always been kind of like my bread and butter. Like I'm instantly gonna fall in love if it's a dark comedy. You know, your Fargos, your other dark comedies. It's just like any of the Coen Brothers movies. But it's basically about these two old white guys who start a podcast after there's a murder. Wait a minute. Start a podcast after they find out someone's been murdered in their apartment building. And there's a lot of twists and turns. I was constantly guessing who the murderer was at the end of every episode. I was watching it with my roommate, who was a Russian supermodel. And she said she was also doing the same thing. And it was just a lot of fun. It was fun. It was like watching a murder mystery in real. I mean, that's what it was. It was a murder mystery, but it was at its core a comedy with two all-time comedic legends once again at the on my television screen. It was nice to see them again, and I missed both of them. I'll finally. What? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I gotta get around to that one.
It's good, and it's already been greenlit for a second season, so you got that to look forward to.
Nice.
That's not to say that the story they were trying to tell in season 1 is or isn't over. I'm not trying to like spoil that with the renewal of season 2, but definitely check it out. That's also on Hulu. But I'll finally throw that back up over to you. What is another show that you watched?
Yeah, well, probably the most recent thing on my list to recap is The Witcher season 2.
Dang it! Another one.
I'm making a habit of it. Everything you own is mine.
Son of a bitch.
Witcher season 2, obviously continuation after Witcher season 1. We have a lot of we have a new kind of main storyline in that.
There's one storyline. It's one timeline.
Yeah, no split timeline anymore. We're hanging out with Geralt and Ciri now, who have spoiled for season 1, I guess. They're united because they were never united before. And it's just kind of about them going on adventures for most of the season, and then the end is kind of like, oh, here we go. Here's the big thing that we're going to be prepping for in the next season.
Right. And, well, they kind of hinted at that throughout season 1 as well, but because it was those 3 different stories happening in 3 different timelines, it kind of fell by the wayside. Because most people were just kind of following it for Geralt or for Yennefer, and people who are fans of the books or fans of the games, while it is a different telling of the stories, they're fans of the characters, and so they know, and they have a favorite, and they want to follow that. And they might have a better idea, like they might know of the big bad that they're kind of hinting at and where it's going. But what did you think of the overarching?
It was enjoyable. I think on the whole, probably just maybe a little bit more enjoyable than the first season, just because you don't have to worry about that. We did. Casey and I did a rewatch of season 1 before watching season 2.
Yeah.
So watching it after the fact, knowing where in time things took place, it makes more sense now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember going in through the first time and kind of being like, all right, this is like, I was able to get it, but it took some like, all right, here we go.
It's almost always like, this character's dead. They died in the second episode, or episode 8 or whatever.
So there's not really any of that anymore. And I like the kind of give and take between Geralt and Ciri. You know, Geralt is your father figure, that your Mandalorian, your Joel,
Mm. The reluctant father
your
figure.
reluctant dad, yeah.
Yeah.
And but in a lot of those scenarios, there's a really easy route to take, especially with younger girls in the child sort of role,
Mhm.
where they're not sufficient, or part of it is them getting in the way or that kind of thing. Not really a whole series, so it's not as aggravating or frustrating as, not to say any of the previous ones I mentioned have that issue. I just that is a problem in that, like, authors or writers in general will be like, young girl must be taught to take care of herself,
Well, it's funny because all of those examples, the younger character, the child character, is always the one that's more powerful than the adult
right?
mother father figure.
But
So
it's a problem that doesn't plague that same
uh,
sort of impetus, but with a young boy,
mm,
because it's usually kind of like, oh, you're taking uh, the reins of your destiny or whatever,
right.
and usually, especially if it's written by a male, if the child character is a young girl, then it's like, oh well, she's headstrong and they can't really do the
Yeah,
right thing,
you
and
lose a lot of the of a lot of the personality in the character because they don't have that personality for
right,
reference.
they exist to be taught by your
Yeah.
dad character, whereas in this, that's not really. They're both kind of interchanging. You see Geralt open up a whole lot more
Mm.
than he was ever grunting in season one. Uh, so between that and Siri, like, doing her own thing, showing
Yeah.
that she can hold her own, and yeah, is very enjoyable.
How'd you feel about the world politics of this season?
Um, yeah,
A
it's
lot of
whatever.
a lot of the side scenes with like characters that are
Yeah, I mean,
obviously
it
not
was
like
it was very Game of Thrones esque. I felt, it's, people talking, conniving,
yeah.
lying, that kind of thing. A lot of it takes place in the Mage's Tower, so there's magic going on with that, and
A bunch of fucking magic over there with mages and shit.
yeah. Um,
Um, yeah, I'm interested to see where the story goes. I personally only have just the smallest amount of experience with the games. I have, especially after watching the recap of season one that I did and going into season two and watching season two, I'm like, I should play Wild Hunt. I should play Witcher 3.
I have them all. I haven't played. Well, I played about an hour and a half of Witcher One,
Yeah.
and that game is jank.
Well,
So,
it's got Mass Effect disease where it's and the first one is very rough, the second one is very action heavy, and the third one is like just where everything kind of comes together. And the good thing about both of those examples is that you can really just kind of play just one or just two or just three, and you get the same thing. I've heard good things. I need to get into the game, and even though I said before the games are telling a different story than the Netflix series, and the Netflix series is telling a different story than the books, even though they're based more off of the books.
man.
And I think Henry Cavill even said on the offset after the season had come out that he's really looking forward to season 3 being closer to the books. And I'm like, ooh, that's a nice dig at the fucking writers and producers
Well,
of the
I
show.
mean, I wouldn't say it's a dig. I mean, it's not a secret at all that he's a huge fan of the
Mm.
source material.
I
Um,
think he's committed to like all 7 seasons that they have planned.
Shit, 7?
I think so.
They
Yeah.
have 7 seasons.
Hold on. I'll look into this. You go ahead.
All I had heard was that the next season was the season 2 and 3 were greenlit at the same time. That's the last I heard. Yeah, just enjoyable little medieval fantasy action romp with some good character stuff in there.
Action romp.
Action romp. Um, yeah.
There was also I highly recommend checking out if you're done finishing watching the Netflix series season 2
Oh, yeah.
to watch the making of special. It does a lot of the behind the scenes. It's really great and really in depth.
Here's an animated one, right?
And there's the animated one that also came out called The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf, which takes place before season 1 and tells the story of basically how the Witcher stronghold kind of fell.
Yeah.
And the one that you are introduced in season 2. Hold on.
Best breakup song, by the way, in season 2.
Which one?
The one in the tavern. When Yennefer is spying.
Oh, I completely forgot. They're actually making the live action prequel limited series called The Witcher Blood
That's
Origin,
right.
which takes place 1200 years before, which is insane. We're getting not one, but 2 fantasy series that take place over 1,000 years before the original that blew up. And of course, I'm talking about the Game of Thrones prequel coming out this year. And there's also a family-friendly animated series that was announced at the end of September last year. So that'll be interesting to see.
Family-friendly Witcher series?
Yeah. I don't know how that exists, but The Witcher is like their big thing since they haven't been able to film or release Stranger Things, which I mean, they have not marketed.
I mean, it's filmed now.
It's done. It's in the can. Like they have it scheduled for, I believe,
this year.
It's this year, at the beginning of this year, before July 4th. But like we haven't had Stranger Things in like 2-3 years.
Yeah, that is one of those Witcher. I'll be curious to see where season 3 comes out, because Witcher season 2 definitely had that problem where the first season was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was really the main impetus behind going back and watching season.
But yeah, like what we said with the crossing of the stories, you definitely had to like recap and everything. We need to get more recaps in our Netflix series because I mean, granted, they don't renew a lot of their shows, so you don't have to watch them much. But...
So, Witcher actually did have a recap on it.
That's right, it did.
It's not in the season itself. It's like they're buried under extras or something. Mm-hmm. But we watched the recap and we were like, we should probably just watch this.
Yeah, it's not too many episodes. It's literally only 8 episodes. So
this is a good, enjoyable ride. So, but yeah, Witcher 2, Witcher season 2, still good stuff. Still liking it. What else you got?
I was going to talk about Shadow and Bone, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This was a series that I was first introduced via the books and your wife. Mm-hmm. We were chatting about books one day and she's like, you should check out this series. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get back into reading. So I ended up reading the first book and then listening to the audiobooks of the second and third book. But Shadow and Bone covers the events of the first book in the trilogy of the Grisha trilogy. And it's a YA novel series. You've got a quote unquote chosen one trying to defeat the ultimate evil. There's a lot more nuance to it. There's a lot more romance between certain characters. They change a lot of the story.
Interesting thing about Shadow and Bone is that in a rare occurrence, the television show based on the source material is exponentially better than the source material.
I actually thought, it was way better paced than the first book, which the first season is based on, and it's simply because they take elements from other books and another series of books, and it kind of smush them into this to make it more.
Yeah, so there's a B plot that includes characters from the Six of Crows books, which is from the same author. I don't know if it's necessarily like that's the sole reason why it's better. I think they do a lot of characterization way better than the books. But something to note is that the Shadow and Bone was Leigh Bardugo's, who's the author. Mm-hmm. That was her first book. So you're comparing the literal beginning of someone's career to like pretty deep years on into it. And you see the improvements there. You're, like I said, you're getting better characterization. You're getting a more kind of clean plot, and just the general vibe of it is just cleaner, more trimmed.
I think in a world where we have a lot of YA adaptations where things can kind of just all seem similar or kind of all meld together, Shadow and Bone has the potential to become like a really popular standout series.
Yeah.
Especially because it's on Netflix, so you already have the subscriber base checking it out. It ended up getting really good reviews, which of course it was already greenlit for season 2. I'm personally looking forward to it. I am interested to see how they will adapt the second book, because they made quite a few changes to the overall story and where characters are by the end of the first season. So it's definitely a version of the series, and it's I'm intrigued to see where it goes. I think I don't think it's coming out this year. Maybe end of this year.
If it's this year, it's the end. Everything's so kind of out of whack because of all the pandemic production scheduling,
which is again stopping a lot of productions now. Run from so they're filming all from January to July of this year, so it'll probably either be end of this year or beginning of next year. So unfortunate, but that's just how it goes with especially big productions like fantasy or sci-fi series like The Witcher. You were talking about it coming out 2 years ago for season 1, and now you have the season 2, so you got to catch up. And then oh boy, I've got quite a few still. You go ahead with one.
So this year we didn't get a whole lot of Star Wars content. We just at the end of the year have been getting Book of Boba Fett, which has been enjoyable. Personally, I like the second episode much more than the first one.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's been pretty light on the Star Wars content. You did get back. But between those two, that was pretty much it. But the one I want to talk about is Star Wars Visions.
Okay, I knew you were leaning to that. Yeah. So what did you think of Star Wars Visions?
So Star Wars Visions is a collection of animated shorts in the Star Wars universe. Think Animatrix, but with Star Wars.
Halo Legends.
Halo, yeah. There's a numerous number of examples. To date, I think it is the most daring Star Wars venture that they have done. There are one or two shorts in there that are lacking here or there, but overall they are a sublime example of what you can do with the universe if you just take the shackles off. Take all preconceived notions of what something is supposed to be and just make it your own.
Yeah.
And that varies wildly. You know, it could be a down to earth sort of Samurai 7 style, you know, story.
There were quite a few that I just felt like, I just needed a little bit. I needed to be a little bit longer. And there were quite a few where I'm like, why does this exist? Why does this story need to be told in like a 5-minute format or what have you?
Yeah, but I think the beauty of it though is even with the ones that you're kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm feeling this, that it's just a glimpse into that, you know. So I think even on the ones that I wasn't entirely feeling, there's still like I like seeing that. I like seeing maybe it's a little controversial to say, but the trigger. There's 2 trigger shorts in there, but the one that pretty much everyone always talks about is the twins. And for me, that was one of the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah, that was the weaker one for me too.
It looks amazing, like the sheer amount of man hours that went into it for a 12-minute, 15-minute sequence is probably astounding. I would imagine, just by how much detail is in it. But it's weak narratively. That being said, I still liked seeing it. It's 15 minutes out of my day.
Yeah,
I liked the visuals.
It's a small commitment, and that's why.
And then on the flip side, you have the Production IG short, which is the longest. It's the longest one in there, I believe. It's the lightsaber maker. With the girl who her father is a lightsaber maker. The group of Jedi that are waiting to receive their lightsabers.
I am. So here's how, and that's the most upsetting part of this series is that a lot of it is forgettable to me. I am literally only remembering the twins, the Samurai 7 episode, the first one, and and the final one, I believe, which is the one where the Jedi decides to become a Sith.
Spoiler, but yes, yeah,
Oops.
yeah, yeah. So I'll hit that one up and just really interesting how they end the series with that. But the Production IG one is there's a group of force sensitive wielders waiting to be given lightsabers so that they can battle the Empire. This is after the fall of the Jedi in Revenge of the Sith. So they're waiting on these lightsabers, and then it's divided between that and them sort of trying to figure out who has called them all there, because they've all been called from different places in the galaxy. Divided between that and a young girl whose father is the lightsaber maker who is making these lightsabers. It's about her trying to get them to those people.
Oh wait, I think I'm remembering this one. Yeah, because this is okay.
Fucking tastic. I would kill for a series of this. It's like Last Exile mixed with yeah. Okay. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I wish I got more of it. But to go back to the one you mentioned, the final episode, it's really interesting that they end on that one because it's a super dour note. It is depressing.
Yeah.
for a series finale, quote unquote series finale. Of a property that is by and large from the studio that makes it marketed towards children. Mm-hmm. So for them to like it, to me, that is just indicative of how the project itself is like outside the norm, separate, right? And like that happens through all of it. Mm-hmm. Every single thing is doing something different. And there's some that you're a little cold on. I also wasn't a huge fan of that boy throw up to the like. It's a doctor makes this like little droid boy who looks like Astro Boy, and he wants to be a Jedi, and it's a whole thing with that.
Yeah, it's Astro Boy.
Yeah, that was all right. It was a little slow for me, but even with that, because it's so not outside of the norm.
Right.
I wish we would do more of this with Star Wars, because it's such a rich like universe to pull from. You could do anything with it. And 9 times out of 10, we're just stuck on the same thing.
Tatooine again.
Yeah, here we go. That's not to say that stuff isn't good a lot of the times. I do like it, but I also love seeing all this crazy shit that is being done in this animation field with Star Wars. It reminds me of the best parts of the expanded universe when we had it, where it's just this off the rocker. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, fantastic. If you have any interest in Star Wars, I do think you should watch it. And go in with an open mind. But two, I also think this is something that is available for people who are not Star Wars fans, because it's very much, like I said, outside of the norm of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of different versions of this thing that you could possibly get attached to and find something to like about. And I think that's the beauty of it. So yeah, definitely one of my favorite of the year for sure.
Even falling in love with one of the animation studios based on the animation from one short
Yep.
that falls down a rabbit hole of certain animes that you can watch or certain television productions you can watch. So it's definitely a gateway show, and I think people should be what.
Oh, I was just thinking of another one of the other ones that I really like, which was The Bride, which is fantastic.
I need to rewatch it, because when you were trying to bring up the show and I was like struggling to remember, I'm like, what is that? And then reading it just now, I definitely should check it out, because a lot of them were memorable to me at the time. And I'm like, as soon as the last episode's credits rolled and they were suggesting different shows, I'm like, that's it?
Well, it's sort of the give and take with something that's short, right? Because you can knock it out an afternoon, if that, like an hour. And the give is that you can watch this really quick. You consume a lot of different stories and art techniques in one go. The downside of that is hopefully you remember it.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with Love, Death, and Robots. Or any sort of anthology series. There's another series called Oat Studios, which is Neil Blomkamp's production studio, which they just released a whole bunch of short films and dropped it on Netflix out of the blue. A lot of fantastic shorts on there, but nobody watched it because it's really kind of more of a showcase than anything. Speaking of animation, I feel like if we didn't talk about Arcane, which was another cultural
I haven't watched Arcane. I hear really good things. I have not watched it.
Background, Zach, are you a fan, or have you played League of Legends?
No, absolutely not. Fuck that
questions. Okay, so you're not a fan of the League of Legends lore.
I can't say I'm not a fan, because I have like very little. I think I played a homebrew, a friend's rig off League of Legends.
Yeah.
Or no, was that even League of Legends? That might have been StarCraft too, actually, now that I think about it.
Well,
point being, I have not actually played League of Legends.
I have played a total of like one game, and that was like 10 years ago of League of Legends. So I basically have no experience. Going into this show, I was absolutely astonished by how little you have to know anything about the series. It's kind of how we talked about in part one, how it's always better to have kind of that experience with the property or the IP, so that you can have that nuance leading into introducing characters or plot points or certain sections of the story or beats, or not even being surprised by like a twist, because you're like, oh, I knew that this character was going to do this. You don't get that when you're going into this show, because you're at the same level as everyone else whether you're an experienced League of Legends fan or you're a newbie.
It's a prequel, right?
It's a prequel, and it introduces a lot of characters that are fan favorites and sets up characters that could show up in the future that they kind of tease that were also fan favorites. But for the most part, it's a wholly original story that paints certain characters from the games in a different light. And overall, the story, the animation, the voice acting, even the music, and I can't believe I'm saying this of an Imagine Dragons song, but the music overall, the soundtrack is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. I've actually worked out to the fucking album of a League of Legends animation.
What a nerd.
Oh, whatever. Sorry,
as he gets done talking about the anime Star Wars.
Yeah. Anyway, Arcane is a fantastic original story that I think is accessible to anyone, whether you're a fan of League of Legends or you're just a fan of a great story. It's a very accessible story with two young girls who are living in poverty that get separated due to certain circumstances and grow up to be um, very important characters in the world that the story takes place in. I kind of don't want to go into too much,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a easily bingeable series that you can watch. They released it in 3 parts with 3 episodes each, which I thought was an interesting way of doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, with like a week apart between each set of
Hmm.
episodes, and I'm like, that's cool. That's like a 3-part movie series basically.
Get your memes in.
Yeah, and they introduced
Allow at least a week to get all your memes.
exactly. I mean, that's basically what they were doing, and for a lot of the people that were fans of the series of game or play the games, they didn't know what to expect, and I think it's I'm really looking forward to Arcane season 2 5 years from now, because the animation took forever from what I read, but I'm looking forward to it. Did you have any other shows?
So I do have other shows that I watched. Majority of them, other than MODOK, however, are MODOK and Behind the Attraction. The rest are all Marvel shows.
Okay, yeah, I have the MCU Disney Plus series as part of them. I figured we were gonna eventually talk about them.
Yeah. What was your favorite of the year? We had a lot.
So WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, and What If? Am I missing one?
I think that's it.
I mean, not counting Legends. That doesn't really count. That's a glossary.
We don't talk about Legends.
We don't talk about Legends.
Yes, yeah. WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Hawkeye.
Not counting MODOK, not counting Hitmonkey, not counting the
MCU Marvel
MCU
TV
Disney Plus series, which are tangentially related and crossover with all the other. Do I have a favorite series
of those 5? Yeah,
of those 5? I think overall they're all, by the end of every one of the series, I was just like, I'm excited to see where this goes. Pretty good. I wasn't blown away overall. I think a lot of the hype, especially coming into WandaVision and coming into Loki at the beginning, because that was the order, right? It was WandaVision, then Loki, then Falcon.
No, it was WandaVision, Falcon.
Oh, that's right. And then Loki.
Do
I have a favorite? That's tough. What If is at the bottom for me.
Really? You didn't like What If?
I think it was good, but it's like I kind of wish we had more of a Star Wars Visions or an anthology with different animations for that series. I feel like
interesting how that sets it up. It is set up that way at the beginning, and then it kind of like, oh no, that we're actually doing a legitimate sort of through line here.
Yeah, which I did not like. Did not like, because that means that people are now connecting parts of What If to the rest of the MCU because it's a multiverse.
Yeah, it is kind of like okay, well, you told me this was going to be, and now you just kind of gone against. You just lied to me. You straight up lied to me.
Yeah, it was a trick. I think Hawkeye is definitely number 4. Because while I did like it, and I like the characters, and I like that it's a very small, contained story, I think that a lot of the biggest problem of all of these shows is that they... Oh no, that's... Actually, the other 3 are fine. Hawkeye pulls on nostalgia, and while I won't spoil anything, they definitely... they try to raise your expectations by hinting at certain connections to previously canceled Marvel properties. And that's supposed to make the show better, but it's not. Great characters. I think Haley Steinfeld is perfect as Kate. I'm already forgetting her last name.
Kate.
Not Barton. That's Clint's last name.
Kate. I'm trying to think in a Russian accent.
No. Kate. Oh yeah, because of
yeah. Good. Shit.
Beckinsale. Fuck, hold on. I gotta look it up because it's gonna bother me now. Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah, it's interesting that Hawkeye is kind of the inverse of the other three in that its best moments, I feel, are at the end of the show.
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop.
Or at least in the latter half of the show.
Yeah.
Whereas the other Marvel shows, I think their problem, although Loki is kind of an outlier, WandaVision and Falcon, I think they're probably much more interesting on the front end than they are at the back end.
They're direct sequels to the events of the previous established movies, whereas Loki is kind of just a side story, basically.
And straight up, Loki was my favorite of the five.
I think overall, that might be the case.
There were moments of it where I was like, okay, well, I kind of was a bit more on this specific episode. But looking back on it, there was never a time where I was like, yeah, this feels like a downgrade, or I'm for something to happen. You know, Hawkeye felt very much in the latter, where I was kind of waiting for something to happen. And when stuff did happen, great. And yeah, some little cameos or extra inclusions here are really nice, and they made me pop off. And, oh, I can't believe it.
Holy shit.
But that can't carry your show.
Yeah.
WandaVision, like for me, the ending was just kind of a wet fart, honestly.
Because it's not only a sequel to Phase 3, but also very critically essential to the beginning of Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
The fact that it got delayed and, you know, we didn't obviously get it as soon as they were hoping. It's made it even worse. I feel like if they had flipped WandaVision and Hawkeye's, but
yes,
WandaVision definitely set the expectations for all of the Marvel Disney Plus series going forward. Like every single, you know, the Mephisto fucking theories and the theories about every single thing. It's interesting. I definitely feel like WandaVision was released at the worst time. They could have definitely switched with another series, but
I'll alter my statement a little bit, and we'll say now, thinking back on it, I did enjoy quite a bit of the latter half of WandaVision as well. I just think that ending specifically just kind of really sours it, just because everything that became before it was way more interesting than what we ended with. And especially with the beginning itself, that was just kind of
what is happening
nuts.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. But you know, even when you get into the point where you realize who the real big bad is, that kind of stuff, that was interesting. It was just that last episode or two that.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this is really and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I actually quite liked. I quite enjoyed. I'd probably rank it at number 2. Overall,
really over WandaVision.
Yeah, I do. I really like WandaVision when it's not the ending. That ending, man, I think that really affected it for me.
So you think overall Falcon and Winter Soldier did it better?
Yeah, because it's consistent. And I talked about this when we were originally. It might not like reach a super high, like explosive bar, but for me, it's consistent on each episode. Where this is good. It's not great. It's good though. Yeah. Each episode, and it's only 6 episodes, so you don't really have that much to fuck it up either.
They were all, from what I can tell. So Loki was 6 episodes.
Was it? Okay.
I think WandaVision, I think, was 8 episodes.
I thought 8 on that one. Yeah.
Falcon and Winter Soldier was 6. Hawkeye was 6 as well, and What If was 8. But they all had varying, run times, obviously. So
yeah.
Actually, I pretty much kind of just agree with your ranking there. I think the potential future for a lot of these series and whether or not they continue with the characters, obviously, Loki has the most potential just overall. WandaVision, we know the future of, because it's literally in the trailer for Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
And is obviously the first case of the Disney Plus shows, um, you know, like being referenced in the movies, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like after the fact, not before. I'm interested to see how WandaVision bleeds into, like, they even kind of dismiss it in the trailer. He's like, I don't want to talk about what happened at WandaVision. I want to talk
Yeah.
I want to talk about my thing. We can't make them watch the show so that they can understand the movie, but that's par for the course with doing this.
So that's the split, right? Is like we were talking about before, where you are able to bring something to an audience that is unaware of the history. However, it's really hard to do that in the MCU point, because the whole impetus of it existing is that you have 26 movies in one arc before this, and now you're connecting them with television shows. Yeah.
Where are the Avengers when they're doing this?
Don't know how much you can have your cake and eat it too. You have to choose.
There will be a breaking point where we're all just going to be completely lost. Like it's just not going to make sense. That kind of is already happening with Spider-Man, without going too much into it. There's a lot of logic breaking kind of towards in the movie. There's certain parts, but it's not a perfect movie. It's an enjoyable one, but we're talking about the TV shows. I'm looking forward to the future. So we'll talk about them over the course of the year. I'm excited for She-Hulk. I'm excited for what else has been confirmed? Moon Knight. Holy shit.
Miss Marvel.
Ooh, that's getting delayed. Yeah, that's definitely getting delayed. With
I think they already have all been delayed. Secret Invasion.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what ends up sticking around, because if we got 5 Marvel shows, What If being kind of
in 1 year, and I know this year was kind of a weird one.
Yeah,
because some of them were delayed.
Yeah, the movies got delayed, so it kind of filled the gap there. But
if we're gonna do 5 a year, I don't know how they keep that shit up. That's nuts.
Yeah, that's insane. I don't know if even they can keep it up, but we'll have to see. I have 2 shows left, and
I
have 2 animes, but this isn't an anime podcast, so I have 2 shows that I have watched very recently towards the end of the year. And I just want to kind of shout them out because they're fantastic shows that I think you should check out for sure. One is Succession, which is a fantastic show that I did not know was a comedy until like halfway through.
It's a dark comedy, Arrested Development, right?
It's not Arrested Development. Well, in the way that it's basically a family tearing itself apart. They're all vying for control of the business to one degree or another. You know, They're either trying to take power, or they're trying to just be in a successful position just in general and just stay there, like be in the middle. And then there's just people who are married into it that are just going along with it and everything. It's a fantastic show with a phenomenal cast, infinitely quotable. I mean, you have probably seen a GIF here or there.
I've seen all of them.
Yeah, it's such a good show. I mean, I did not think I was going to be into this show as much as I got into it, especially in the first half of season 1. I thought it was like, okay, this is another kind of one of those slow
drama
shows. I literally confused it with Billions like all the fucking time, because it's another one of those shows. I guess it's just a whole bunch of rich people in a tall building in New York. But it's so much more than that. It's a dark comedy for sure. Everyone is both smart and stupid at the same time. And the amount of money that people are throwing at certain things, like, oh, just get the helicopter to take them like 10 miles down the road, or, that kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Not to mention, one of the main characters I was rooting for the entire time, Cousin Greg, played by Nicholas Braun, who's this tall, lanky actor who you've probably seen as, he was in Sky High. He was the dark kid in Sky High. He's fantastic in this. And Matthew McFadyen again is fantastic in this. Definitely check it out. It's on HBO Max if you're looking into it. It's one of the big HBO properties that they're pushing as like tent poles, basically.
Been part of my list for a couple of years now.
Definitely, like, just give the first episode a watch, and then if you're not invested by then it might not be the show for you. It definitely takes a bit to get into, but I think you'll get the gist by the end of the pilot episode. And then the other show is Succession, but on a ranch, and it's called Yellowstone. And so,
Succession, but ranch.
I mean, it's essentially what it is. It's starring Kevin Costner, starring Legion from Ghost Rider. What's his name?
Of course.
Ben. Can't remember. He has like the really evil eyebrows. He's got an evil looking face. Not Ben Mendelsohn. It's basically about a guy who's constantly having to protect his ranch from all of these all of his enemies, with whether it be the Native Americans and their reservation trying to bleed onto his ranch, whether it be people from California trying to buy parts of his ranch to build a hotel or whatever, and then there's people just straight up trying to come onto his ranch and kill him and everything. It is not just about a whole bunch of people like ranching cows and shit, although there is a ton of that. And I think there is a particular part of, I think, us being a little bit more closer towards that type of environment, living in Texas.
Yeah.
We're already surrounded by that, so that's not a barrier we have to break through.
Well, yeah. It's a cow.
They mention they mention Fort Worth by name multiple times because they certain characters go from Montana is where it takes place, and they have to travel down to Texas. One character has to travel down to Texas at one point to train at the 4 Sixes, which is a real ranch. And they're like, all the Texan cowboys are badasses, and they show up on the Montana ranch where the Duttons are. Fantastic neo-western created by Taylor Sheridan, who wrote Hell or High Water, Sicario, directed Wind River, Those Who Wish Me Dead, which starred Angelina Jolie, came out last year. He's kind of like the new Western kind of director.
Yeah.
The new John Ford. Oh, that's a heavy burden. But I highly recommend it. I didn't think I was going to invest in this about a whole bunch of cowboys, straight up fucking like going out and killing people, and people getting branded by their boss, saying you're property of the ranch now, kind of thing. It's badass. I didn't think I was gonna get invested in a show that I didn't think I would have a show in common with my dad, but there you go.
Here we are. Is he falling asleep in it?
It's a very dad. Well, he's a dad. It's a very dad show, But I highly recommend it. It's not just about like ranching and stuff. It's fantastic. I think I'm not missing any other shows. Oh, one final one. Sorry. Real quick. This was a show that a lot of people slept on, and then a lot of people hated because of its slow pace. But as I've said before, as you said multiple times, slow pace does not indicate a bad show or a bad story. This was a show called Invasion, which was on the Apple TV streaming platform. And I want you to kind of meld together the ideas of War of the Worlds, but told from the perspective of multiple people in multiple parts of the world, and how they have to deal with the ramifications of an alien invasion, and not just like actually dealing with aliens, but dealing with, oh my god, what do I have to do? And
kind of a World War Z, in terms of the book, not the movie.
Exactly. So it's not action heavy. It's not. It does. You do not even see the aliens for a large portion of this series.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people, when I was reading the reviews for the series, I think it's at like a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes right now for both audience and critics. And I was just like, wait, why? And people were talking about how it was not bombastic enough for an alien invasion series. And I'm like, I feel like they didn't get it. They weren't understanding that that was
the point.
It's character driven. Just because it's an alien invasion series does not mean that it's going to feature aliens, killing your favorite character this episode. It's very much the parts that I didn't like of Walking Dead, where people are just walking around talking and stuff. The kind of stuff
Yeah.
that's the lull between. This is kind of a large portion of that series. There are like horror elements, there are sci-fi elements, there are like some great action scenes in this series, but a lot of it is characters dealing with, oh, my wife died on the first day of the alien invasion, and I have to deal with our marriage was falling apart the day before, and I can't believe I have to live with not saying goodbye, that kind of thing.
Right, yeah. On top of, oh, the aliens are here.
And oh yeah, aliens are still trying to take over the planet, kind of thing. So it's both. It juggles between both, and I think a lot of people felt that they were cheated by, and a lot of people fell off the show because they didn't reach the end. And I think the season finale, which obviously sets up for a second season, definitely does a lot for both tying up loose ends while also telling you that there's even more to come, and it's probably going to be even crazier than the first season. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think people should definitely check it out. It's another series, like I said, on the Apple TV streaming platform, which is the one streaming platform I haven't ever subscribed to, but I've been consistently surprised by their catalog of shows.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they have a good little section carved out there for themselves.
They have a lot, yeah. We didn't talk about Foundation because I have simply not started it. Unfortunately, it's kind of fallen by the wayside. But that's another series. There are tons and tons of shows that we were not able to get to on this episode of our 2021 in review, Zach.
That would have been a 10-hour podcast.
10-hour podcast, and honestly, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, if we got paid,
hell yeah,
living, I'd be doing it all day, every day, But I don't know, if you want to support us, just hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, or hit follow us if you're watching us on any social media. Rate us 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever it is, and stay tuned for a part 3, Zach, where we talk about we talk about the worst TV shows and worst movies of 2021, and worst trends, honestly, because there's one guy in particular that I want to talk about.
Oh, boy.
But this has been Lights Camera Nonsense, keeping you updated despite our best efforts. Make sure to tune in every week for our latest news, reviews, and what else, Zach?
How do you do's?
How do you do's part 2s? Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye.